Welcome back to some new r/PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Got Her Fired. When I was younger, I had been a loyal client of my nail tech Stacy for over 4 years. We got along well, and in early 2022, she offered me an opportunity to move into her parents' old house with another one of her clients. The rent would be split, and Stacy's brother Simon would be the landlord. I had been looking to move out, so I thought this was perfect. Unfortunately, just a week before moving in, my mother passed away unexpectedly. It was a devastating time. I had to manage all of her affairs and support my father within a short period. Stacy initially seemed very supportive, frequently checking in and trying to cheer me up with dinners and hangouts. We grew closer, and I thought I had made a lifelong friend. But things didn't stay that way. 3 months later, after I quit my job due to some workplace issues, Stacy offered me a position as a receptionist at her nail salon. I was excited to work in a place I enjoyed visiting and thought it would be fun to work alongside my friend, who was the assistant manager. Initially it went well, and I even made some new friends, including Alice, who was supposed to become my new roommate in the fall after my current roommate moved out. As Alice and I started spending more time together outside of work to get to know each other, Stacy began stirring up drama. She told me lies about my coworkers, claiming they were gossiping about me, criticizing my weight, and judging my boyfriend. This created a lot of mistrust for a while. Then Stacy dropped a bombshell. 3 days before Alice was set to move in, Stacy announced that she was also moving in, not to live there, but to open her own nail salon in the back of the house, directly across from my bedroom. Alice and I were shocked. Alice decided not to move in, and I couldn't blame her. I was stuck living next to a nail salon in the house I was renting. Things started to unravel. Alice talked to the other nail techs, who revealed that Stacy had a history of causing problems with receptionists, isolating them, and manipulating situations to benefit herself. Suspicious, I started to quietly observe and document her actions. Stacy began taking supplies from the salon, claiming they were hers, and the salon owner Nick started asking me why we were running out of materials. I played along, taking screenshots of everything and keeping records. The final straw came when Stacy asked me to carry some boxes to her car. Inside were salon supplies like waxing beads and nail products. Later, Nick started investigating missing supplies, exactly the ones I had unknowingly helped move to Stacy's car. I compiled all the evidence I had: missing supplies, overcharging clients, texts about her plans for her unlicensed salon, and accusations against her coworkers. I informed Nick and told him everything. Stacy didn't show up to work on the day Nick came to address the issue. I laid out everything, and Nick was clearly hurt, but said this wasn't the first time Stacy had caused problems. He fired her, changed all the locks and codes, and thanked me for my honesty. Afterward, Stacy bombarded me with messages, accusing me of betrayal and claiming the supplies were hers. When I provided proof that the purchases were made with Nick's card, she blamed the other nail techs for turning me against her. I told her it was over and that I wasn't renewing my lease anyway. Fast forward, Nick made me the temporary assistant manager, though I left 2 months later to return to my field of psychology. I moved in with my now husband. Alice and I became best friends, and Stacy's reputation took a hit. She lost clients, friends, and ultimately her position as a nail tech, having to find work elsewhere to make ends meet. The next story is called Small Victories. I had a neighbor who consistently allowed her dog to use my yard as a bathroom. She would let her dog outside without a leash, yell for him to come back in, and never once cleaned up after him. I confronted her multiple times, but she denied it was her dog. The thing is, I live on a corner lot with no other nearby neighbors. It was clearly her dog. The last time I brought it up, she got defensive and even threatened me. So I decided to send a clear message. Early one morning, while it was still dark, I went out with a spray bottle of water and lightly misted her car's windshield. Then I sprinkled some dirt over it, creating a dusty layer. Using a newspaper from her porch, I carefully picked up some of her dog's mess and placed it across her windshield wipers. The dust on the windshield worked perfectly to hide the mess. I waited nearby to see what would happen. When she came out and turned on her windshield wipers, it made quite the mess. Let's just say the results were unpleasant. The smell hit her almost immediately, and she jumped out of the car looking completely disgusted. She ended up being sick in her driveway and spent a lot of time trying to clean her windshield, all while looking visibly nauseated. As a little bonus, I rolled the newspaper I had used back up, placed it back in its sleeve, and returned it to her porch. Later that day, I heard her retrieve it and bring it inside. A few minutes later, I heard retching sounds coming from her house. She walks her dog on a leash now. Unfortunately, she still doesn't clean up after him, but at least she avoids my yard entirely. Small victories, I suppose. The third story is called The Worst Song. I'm a frequent visitor to sports bars. I go to watch games and enjoy some classic bar food. A lot of the places I visit have those music machines on the wall, where you can pay $1 to play a song across the entire bar. One day, while browsing the available songs, I came across something truly unique. Tubular Bells Part 2. It's hard to describe. Imagine a random jam session, where someone keeps switching instruments, never sticking to a rhythm or beat. Just when you think they are about to settle into something, they completely change direction. It's, let's call it chaotic creativity, and it's 26 minutes long. The first time I played it, I realized just how much it could throw people off. Bartenders and wait staff couldn't skip it without restarting the sound system, and the reactions from the crowd ranged from confusion to full-blown frustration. I have to admit, I found it amusing, though these days I typically leave right after starting it, to avoid being found out. Last month I went to a big chain sports bar. Let's just say the experience was far from ideal. The food wasn't great, service was slow, and after just an hour and a half we got moved from our table because it was reserved for a game. While I understand the need to keep things organized, it was frustrating to deal with that kind of service, especially since I've had better experiences there before. So while we moved to the bar, I decided to play Tubular Bells Part 2 as a little farewell to the night. Watching the puzzled expressions and subtle frustration build in the room added a humorous twist to an otherwise mediocre evening. The next story is called Dilbot. I've been working in a new career for a few years now, transitioning from a decade in hospitality to a heavy industry job, with rotating day and night shifts. Overall, things have been going well. Most people here are great to work with, and I get along well, thanks to the people skills I developed in restaurants and bars. However, there's one exception. Let's call him Dilbot. Dilbot has been in this job for over 25 years. He's known for doing the bare minimum, pointing fingers, and generally being a challenge to work with. Our shifts are from 5 to 5, but the nature of the job means we sometimes work past that to meet production demands. On the flip side, if we are ahead and everything's prepped for the next crew, we are allowed to leave early, as long as there's no mess to clean or unfinished tasks that could delay production. One day we wrapped up early, cleaned everything and left everything ready for the next crew. Since we were ahead of schedule, I started heading out at 4:30. That's when Dilbot called me over. I assumed he needed an update on the shift, but instead he insisted I go back and finish a task, despite it being completely unnecessary. He claimed that he always stays until 5, regardless of how production is going. I explained that everything was set up and ready to go, and all he had to do was push a button and monitor it for an hour. but Dilbert wasn't having it. After some back and forth, I gave up, went back to work, and finished the task while the rest of my crew headed home, laughing as they left. To top it off, Dilbert didn't even take over until 5:30. Dilbert never stays past 4 on his own shifts. He leaves early, relying on his crew to pick up the slack, all because he insists on taking a shower on site before heading home. It's not a rule, just something he's decided to do. Cue some petty revenge. At work, our uniforms are cleaned and stored on numbered shelves assigned to each person. One day, as I was collecting mine, I had an idea. I found Dilbert's shelf number on the public spreadsheet and started making small, subtle adjustments. Over the past 2 years, I've been using a Sharpie to mark the corners of his chest pockets, making it look like a penalty, pulling threads so his buttons don't last, and occasionally writing his neighbor's shelf number, so his uniforms end up in the wrong spot. Because of this, Dilbert has consistently struggled with stained and misplaced uniforms. He's not allowed to order replacements anymore, since he keeps exceeding his budget. I've heard from his crew that he often gets in trouble for his uniforms not being up to standard, and they find it hilarious when he has to dig through his neighbor's uniforms to find his own. The last story is called Petty Sabotage. About 25 years ago, I was working my way through school with a challenging warehouse job. One day, a driver and one of my colleagues got into a conflict because the truck my friend loaded had a couple of pallets out of order. This situation often happens when later orders come in, and we need to add an extra pallet to the back of the truck. Instead of delivering it, the union driver returned to the warehouse, had an outburst, and caused us all to stay an hour or more beyond our mandatory overtime. The driver was entitled to leave at the end of his 8-hour shift, but instead he didn't complete his job and disrupted the work of about 20 co-workers. The next truck my friend loaded for him didn't even have the proper pallets. It was packed like a hurricane. It was frustrating, but he was determined to make a point. When the driver reached his destination, he opened the truck door, filed a complaint, and walked off the job, leaving the truck fully loaded at the delivery location. Management wasn't present because it was the middle of the night, and my friend was still upset. I told him I'd help resolve the issue with him. That evening, after finishing all our other work, we decided to clock out 15 minutes early. Then we drove back to the warehouse off the clock, spent about 3 hours fixing everything, and took pictures as evidence. Afterward, we filed a complaint about the driver. When management reviewed the complaints from both of us and the driver, we were able to show that we had done our jobs correctly, while he had not. We had worked 3 hours early to fix the issues, whereas he had only worked 2/3 of his shift and caused unnecessary delays over what was clearly a minor inconvenience. As a result, my friend and I received a $2 per hour raise and a minor promotion, and the driver was officially written up for his behavior. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.